Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you a comparison video today that I've had quite a few requests for, and that is the Adidas X16 Plus PureChaos versus the Nike Mercurial Superfly 5. Two shoes from two major competing brands that fall into similar marketing categories, which is why I think a lot of people want to compare the two. Although I will say this, they're extremely different from each other, and it really depends on what type of fit, feel, and general performance that you're looking for as to which is going to be the better option for you. Of course, I'm going to cover all of that in today's video. We're going to talk tech specs, performance, take a look at the weight of the shoe, as well as how they both fit and feel on feet. So if you are interested in learning more and having a hard time deciding between either the Superfly and the PureChaos, this video should help you out tremendously. So with that being said, let's get right into the comparison. Starting off with the uppers, you have two very different designs and two very different materials. Again, because they are marketed as lightweight speed boots, if you will, on the thinner side, you'd expect them to both have more of a barefoot sensation. And that's not necessarily the case with the PureChaos. It's listed as a Tech Fit upper, which is not the most specific thing in the world. The Tech Fit system is mainly this extension piece that you see right here, made out of this elasticated material. This extends up until this seam internally, wrapping your entire foot, giving the shoe a very kind of tight, almost compression fit through the midfoot area. And then of course on top of that, covering up this system as well as the laces internally, you have the PureCut lace cover as well as the forefoot area, which is just a straight up synthetic material. The synthetic itself does have some thickness to it. There is somewhat of a padded sensation from the liner as well, but it's soft, it's flexible, it feels very comfortable, requires very little break-in time, and like I said, is thin, but does have somewhat of a padded sensation to it, not only because of the padded section here in the forefoot, but also because you have multiple layers of material throughout the rest of the upper. Texturing on the surface includes the non-stop grip dots, which are fairly minimal. It is Adidas's wet control element, but something that, in my opinion, isn't really a performance enhancer. And then you do have the texturing within this kind of crackle torn pattern, if you will, that again is fairly minor and not necessarily something that you notice on the ball. With the Superfly 5, you're definitely getting a touch on the ball that I would describe as more of a true barefoot sensation, but at the same time, because of the knitted nature of the material itself, there is a slightly padded feel as well. You do have the interesting texturing that they've added to the upper in the form of these horizontal stripes. There's a variance in thickness between 1 millimeter and 2.5 millimeters, which does create this kind of almost ribbed-like texturing as you run your finger along the upper. With that being said, again, it's a fairly minimal texturing, although much more significant than what you'll get on the PureChaos, but still something that I don't think has a major impact on touch on the ball. With that being said, it's still thinner than what you'll find from the PureChaos, and the upper itself does have kind of more of a sock-like sensation, again, because it is knitted. It's entirely one piece, so you don't have any overlapping materials, a little bit more consistent in terms of just general touch across the entire foot. Because of that reason, the laces run through the middle, although it's a little bit deeper than what you'll find on the PureChaos as well, which does create for a tighter wrap throughout the entire foot, which you may deem to be better or worse, more comfortable or less comfortable, depending on your own personal preferences. And then of course, you do have ACC, all conditions control, as your wet control element on this particular shoe, but just like non-stop grip, not something that I personally think is all that big of a deal. So if you want more of a barefoot feel on the ball, the Superfly is probably the better bet. Whereas if you prefer something that is not quite as tight, is thin, but at the same time does have a slightly padded sensation, the PureChaos is probably more along the lines of what you're looking for. Next, let's talk about cut, which is kind of a recent trend in high-end soccer shoes. Nobody wants to have a standard low-cut shoe anymore. Everyone's playing around with different things, and side by side, you can see they're both slightly abnormal in comparison to a standard low-cut shoe. With the Superfly 5, you are getting Nike's Midcut design with this dynamic fit collar, which in the case of the Superfly, because the entire upper is Flyknit, it seamlessly transitions into a Flyknit collar, which is fully elasticated. It offers no ankle support, it offers no structure, it doesn't restrict mobility in any way at all. It's there, one, for looks, And because of the way it looks and the way that it's attached to the upper, it does change the fit in the heel ever so slightly. It has Not necessarily a negative fit, not something that I would say is a bad thing. It's just a little bit more quirky or a little bit different than a regular low-cut shoe would be. So it takes more getting used to is kind of what I'm getting at. But other than that, like I said, there is no performance advantage to a mid-cut collar. The only real advantage, if you want to call it one, in comparison to a low-cut shoe is that with this collar, if you are playing on artificial grass with the black rubber pellets, it does tend to keep those out of your shoe, which is a nice thing. But other than that, like I said, there's not really any performance advantage to having this mid-cut extension piece attached to the ankle of your shoe. With the PureChaos, again, it looks a little bit different. It's significantly lower in comparison to the Superfly 5, but the side piece are raised a little bit in comparison to a standard low-cut shoe, and then obviously the front and back extend out much higher than, quite honestly, they need to be extended. So really, when you put this shoe on, aside from how it looks, it feels pretty much like a normal low-cut shoe, which is a good thing. I think out of the box, this feels more normal, therefore more comfortable for most people. But again, you get used to the mid-cut fit of the Superfly 5 very quickly. This front piece extends a little bit higher just for the sake of, I guess, looks. These side pieces, again, are there mainly for looks. They're just material with no structure to them. And then you have the S-curve heel, which is kind of marketed as a comfort feature, but in all honesty, you don't feel this extension piece at all. And like I said, it doesn't really need to be there. So for the most part, I really don't think that cut should be a major deciding factor. It definitely impacts the fit more than it does performance in any way at all. But something that I did want to touch on, just because, like I said, it is such a common trend amongst modern soccer shoes. So I figured I'd talk about the difference between the two. They're different, but again, I wouldn't really give one the advantage because of the design in regards to the cut. Next, let's talk sole plates and stud patterns, which again is a category where there's some pretty big differences between these two shoes. With the PureChaos, you're getting a pretty standard layout from the Adidas brand. It's a sprint frame construction that does include the external heel counter, and it's this plastic material that's on the thinner side. It's got decent flexibility to it. It does lower the overall weight of the shoe, and then of course it does have their stud pattern layout that they've been using for quite some time. The major advantage of this stud pattern, and I guess the Adidas brand in general right now, is that their shoes are FG-AG, so you can use them on both firm natural grass and artificial grass, something that you can't do with this shoe, which is an FG shoe made strictly for use on firm natural grass. If you want to use these on artificial grass, it's strongly recommended that you do buy the AG variation, which does feature a different stud pattern. I will say this is more of an FG stud pattern than it is an AG stud pattern, but it does work on artificial grass and the shoe will hold up quite well. Whereas if you use something like this, a firm ground shoe on artificial grass, it's quite possible the shoe will break prematurely. And it's also possible that Nike will not honor any kind of warranty or manufacturing defect because you are wearing the shoe on a playing surface it was not intended to be used on. So I would describe the performance of the sole plate and stud pattern on the PureChaos as gets the job done, but nothing that we haven't seen before. With the Superfly 5 though, they've really made something that I think is a revolution in regards to soccer shoes. And it's something that I think is a really special feature and arguably the best thing that we've seen in terms of just new innovation in soccer shoes for 2016. This is their Nike Plate sole plate, which is a one-piece material. So using a vacuum forming process, it's a single piece of material as opposed to being layered. This allows them to make a sole plate that's not only going to be a little bit lighter than a standard layered plastic sole plate, which you can achieve. We see it right here with the sprint frame. It's nice and lightweight, but because this is a single layer of material, not only is it going to be lighter than this, it's also allowing them to create a shape to the sole plate itself. So instead of being completely flat, it's anatomically formed. So you have little parts where your foot sinks into the sole plate. If you can imagine my hand on this desk, it's completely flat. That's what a standard sole plate would be like. So as soon as I apply any kind of lateral force, there's going to be some kind of slippage on the surface of that sole plate just because it's not digging in. If you can imagine my hand sinking into the desk ever so slightly, once I would try to move it from side to side, it wouldn't move. That's what's happening with your foot sitting in the sole plate on this shoe as opposed to directly on top. It's something that you will immediately notice when you put them on. It doesn't feel weird, you get used to it pretty quickly, But with that in combination of the really tight kind of secure fit that you get from the upper of this shoe, it just makes for a very responsive, locked in sensation, that one-to-one reaction time that this shoe, along with the Vapor 11, because it does have a similar fit and obviously the same sole plate, that you can't get from any other shoe on the market. So in regards to just locking your foot in place and having a super responsive one-to-one feel, the Superfly 5 does that significantly better in comparison to the PureChaos. Also, the stud pattern, again, it's not FGAG, but for firm natural grass, this bladed stud pattern is the most aggressive one you can get right now. So if you're just looking for outright bite when pushing off in any direction, this is a very good stud pattern that, like I said, outperforms pretty much anything that I've personally tried and what's available right now. It's the best Mercurial stud pattern that they've ever put out. And like I said, it's very good. There's no other way to put it. So a kind of a trade-off here. This is FGAG, which I would say is a major plus, but in regards to traction on firm natural grass, this definitely beats it out. And also the feel and just general performance that you get from this anatomically formed sole plate, I just think is a really unique feature that's super noticeable, especially when you stop wearing something like this and go back to something with a flat sole plate. You'll instantly notice the difference in responsiveness. So overall, I would say the winner would be the Superfly 5 in this particular category, but again, they're very different things. In regards to weight, these are both relatively lightweight shoes, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna weigh them both for you today in real time using this scale. Keep in mind, these are both in brand new condition and both the exact same size 9 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the PureChaos, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.9 ounces, the equivalent of 196 grams. Remember those numbers. We'll change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and throw on the Superfly 5. And you can see that they weigh in at 6.7 ounces, the equivalent of 190 grams. So you're talking about a 0.2 ounce weight difference, with the Superfly 5 being ever so slightly lighter. In hand, the weight difference is extremely minimal. I would say that you're not even going to notice a difference. But on feet, again, they do feel very similar in terms of weight, but because of the really tight wrap of your foot with the Superfly 5 and that anatomically formed sole plate, once you do start running around a little bit, this just provides so much more of a locked-in sensation that the shoe will feel lighter than it actually is. So I will say that there's not a big weight difference physically between the two, but the Superfly 5 definitely does feel lighter on your feet. Nonetheless, they're both very lightweight shoes. They're both going to provide a lightweight feel, but again, the Superfly 5 will feel lighter, mainly just because of how it fits. In terms of fit, the Superfly 5 and PureChaos are both what I would classify as tighter fitting shoes, but they fit tight in very different ways, if that makes any sense. With the Superfly 5, in typical Mercurial fashion, it has a very tight, super close wrap to your foot, pretty much no extra space on the inside whatsoever, given that you have the proper sizing. The Flyknit material is soft, it's flexible, does have that sock-like sensation to it. You have the Flywire cables running through the upper as well, so when you pull the laces tight, it really locks your foot in place inside of the upper. And when you combine that with the anatomically fitted sole plate, it just has a super tight one-to-one wrap of your foot. With the PureChaos, you have a tight fit, but it certainly isn't as, I guess, narrow overall. The midfoot area definitely does have the tightest fit of the entire shoe, mainly because of that tech fit wrap and obviously where the laces are located, while forefoot and toe box area doesn't really have any laces to it. It's a lot more open, it's a lot more roomy, especially in comparison to the Superfly 5. So in regards to which is wider than the other, the PureChaos is definitely wider, but not what I would consider to be super wide overall. If you like tight fitting shoes, I think that these will fit most people, whereas the Mercurial line, if you've worn Mercurials before, you kind of know what to expect in regards to fit. Although I will say that these fit particularly well in comparison to past Mercurials. As far as the fit in the heel is concerned, like I said, the PureChaos, while it looks a little bit different, it does have more of a standard kind of low-cut shoe fit and feel in the heel area. Nothing really to get used to. Whereas the mid-cut aspect of the Superfly 5, while much better than the original mid-cut shoes from Nike, it still does take a little bit of getting used to. You may experience a little bit of discomfort at first, so it is recommended that you take your time with the break-in process. Don't wear them straight into a game. and after a couple hours or so, you should be pretty much good to go. As far as sizing is concerned, they both run true to size. I'm wearing my usual size 9 US in both of these shoes. So if you are looking at either the Superfly or the PureChaos, I would personally recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, guys, that's it for my comparison between the Superfly 5 and the X16 Plus PureChaos. They're both very, very good shoes, and this is kind of my concluding opinion. I think the Superfly 5 is much more technologically advanced. The Flyknit upper is a lot more complex, and of course the sole plate and stud pattern I think just straight up outperforms what you're going to get from the PureChaos. But the PureChaos is a very interesting design in itself. They managed to implement a lace cover without the shoe feeling bulky. I think that the internal tech fit system works very well, and the shoe as a whole performs very, very well. There's nothing about it that I think is wrong in any way at all. As far as which of these two shoes is my personal favorite to wear, I really feel like the sole plate and stud pattern is an amazing feature here on the Superfly 5, so I really like that about this shoe. But just for me personally, in terms of how the shoe fits my foot specifically, I find the X16 Plus PureChaos just a little bit more comfortable for me to wear. So with comfort for me being kind of the #1 priority, I do prefer to wear the X16 Plus PureChaos, but like I said, there isn't really a winner in terms of which is better than the other. They're entirely different products, and it really depends on your own personal preferences as to which is going to be the better option for yourself. So hopefully this video helps you to decide which is the better option for you. If you guys have any questions at all, leave them down below in the comment section, and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you did enjoy today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.